The magical kindergarten teacher is not a fantasy figure from a children's book, because today we're going to meet the real thing. Her name is Betty Peck, and she and her historian husband, Willys, have created a magical world of wonder on this very property, where children can discover who they are and whom they might become. But be careful, adults can rediscover themselves here too, and that could just be you. Betty, why did you become a kindergarten teacher?
I was born the oldest of 6. And when you are born the oldest of 6, you have no choice. You are the teacher.
Uh-huh.
And so I was the teacher.
Well, what was it about kindergarten children that particularly appealed to you?
The kindergarten children still have the awe of life. They still have that intuitive love of nature, and they still have the wisdom that was born of mankind. And it is so exciting because you can learn so much from them. I mean, a teacher is a sort of a strange word because they're teaching you all the time. And so it is the teacher who is learning from the children. And when Willys decided to go to law school, I had to earn money, so this district here hired me. And I was put into classrooms under principals that had to have some kind of help in understanding what it was all about, such as this one principal came and he said, people are talking about the way you dress. And I say, I dress according to Froebel, who gave to the world the word kindergarten. He was German, so I dress in German dirndl, full skirt, tight little blouse here. And
were they a little bit worried about the way you were dressed?
Yes, because it was always the same kind of pattern. I always wore Italian shoes for Maria Montessori.
Did they consider you somewhat subversive?
Yes.
Or a bit too original?
Yes. I have no idea in the fact that it bothered them. But when I lost my waistline, then I went into the Afghanistan walking dresses that I'll show you later.
Okay, I think there's an interesting story about that. But before we get into it, tell us a few of the things that you've learned from kindergarten children.
Oh, I have learned so much. I have learned that they all want to belong. They all want to become one. They love being a part of something. They see the garden being one. They see that you can't have your little pansies unless the rain and the sun and the soil are all working together. And then also, they love diversity. Oh, they love different things. It is so, and you can't have diversity without oneness, and you can't have oneness without diversity.
Right.
But what they really wanted from me was my love and my goodness for them. And Plato said that goodness is composed of truth, beauty, and love. And so I said, oh, this is one way I can help solve the world's problems. That's God, the spelling of God. Capital G for the good, O for the oneness of all life, and D for diversity. And so I began to tell people about this idea and that I was writing this book, and they said, oh, don't forget this. And don't forget that the North American Indians had this idea all along before it was wiped out of them. And so there is my book, a picture of it right there. A kindergarten teacher looks at the word God. My wonderful friend Virginia Fordyce, who five of her children I had in kindergarten, I wanted her to illustrate my book, and so this is the result. It's in a little, you put it like this, you can frame it, but this is the good, as you can see how beautifully she's done it, with all the things that we associate with good, like Mother Earth and such. And then this is the oneness of all life. And you can see her oneness there from the very beginning of time. And then the end was diversity, and so she used her talents to bring in all the diversity that we encounter each day.
You've talked about the wonder of the kindergarten child. About at what age does this sense of wonder begin to wane?
I think it's about 7. I say it is 7. Most educators say it is 7. And it begins to take on a different mode. This wonder and this belief and this thrill and all of the wisdom of mankind that pours out of these children becomes pushed and almost smothered by adulthood.
How?
They say, do this, do that, no you can't. Beforehand, they were free. The play was wonderful. I mean, they learned so much through play. Unbelievable doing play. And I said to them when this wonderful principal hired me to come over and set up my own wonderful ideas. At that time, they were just, you know, and it was the same school where Willys went. But they didn't have a kindergarten, so he wanted a kindergarten. He said, I want you to come over and bring your ideas. I said, no, not unless my door opens into a garden and I have a built-in oven. And he said, yes, you may do it any way you want. And so I went there.
Betty, I've been wandering around the property here and around the house, and this house is full of magic. You have angels here. Why would angels be particularly important for children?
No kindergarten teacher would set her foot inside a room without believing in guardian angels. You can't be everywhere. And here they are protected and loved by many layers besides me, besides the teacher. Well, everything is everything we do, all of our drama, we always include angels. All of our stories that we talk about, we include angels. The children love to, and the angel, one of the first letters we learn is the head, and then it comes down like this, and it forms the A for angel.
Yeah. Betty, do you suppose it's possible for an adult to rekindle or at least not lose this sense of wonder and oneness that a kindergarten child has?
You can almost tell who's had a kindergarten teacher who believed in magic, in this kind of wonderful system that we call play and imagination. And you can almost go up to them and say, oh, tell me about your early days and your kindergarten teacher. And it always has worked out for me that they have had wonderful times to play, great adventures outdoors, to be on their own, because they have to, through their play, build the universe for themselves. And this is so important, but if they don't get it, then they're crumpled up. You can almost walk down the street and see which ones haven't had a chance to play when they were young. And this unfolds and puts the foundation blocks into place for adulthood.
What is your life like? Are you at play all the time, do you
Yes.
feel?
Yes.
What do you like to do for play?
What I like to do for play is in many categories. And I like to, one of the things I feel is important and that comes out with me is the way I dress. It has to be seasonal. It has to be fun. It has to be something that's exciting and wonderful that I wear, so that I can feel the layers of beauty that have caused this to be. And I find myself playing at decorating, putting things all together, fixing, cooking in a playful, wonderful mood. And I feel that my garden gives me this scope, and my house gives me this scope. I wouldn't marry a man without a house. So when he got the house, then we began. And it was so exciting to think that I had the territory, and I had ways of gathering things that would enrich not only the garden, but myself and the house.
Well, Betty, on that note, can we have a tour of the house and the garden?
Yes, let's do.
Okay.
This glass was given to me by a mother whose 2 children I had in kindergarten. And we have a little song about it. The glass is in the window, the picture is of me. I know I'm in the garden's inside of me. And we would sing it every morning, and then when I retired, I brought the glass home to put in my own window. Tim Young was one of my kindergarten students of long ago, and his mother was so valuable to our kindergarten because she had such talent. And Tim Young had this awe and wonder of life that was so beautiful. And he graduated from West Point and became an Air Force captain and was sent to Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, he remembered that I always wore Afghanistan walking dresses. First I wore Froebel's gorgeous costume, a small little waist and big full skirt and a black tunic here, and then white blouses. But when and shoes from Montessori, Italian shoes from Montessori. But when I lost my waist, my dressmaker said, "Never mind, I have a pattern for an Afghanistan walking dress." So she made me 2 or 3 in each, for each season, because a kindergarten teacher always dresses according to the season. So I was so thrilled when his mother brought me over this Afghanistan walking dress that he had found at the bazaar in Afghanistan, and I wore it every day in December. It was so exciting, and here it is, Valentine's Day, and I'm again wearing it for this Valentine's season. Jorge, come in.
Hello, Betty. How you doing?
This is my old kindergarten student of long ago, whose skill is now enriching our lives so much. He is an electrician, and he helps me with just put in new lights, and I depend on his ability. But look at him, how wonderful he is.
Thank you, Betty.
Jorge, what was it like to be a student of Betty's?
Oh, well, it was very enlightening. She was always friendly with me, and it was always playful, and she was very educating. She taught my entire family, a family of 9, so she's been a part of our lives for many, many years. So it's very enriching, the life that she's added to our family. And so it's not only me, but my entire family. I love this lady very much.
And what's it like to come here in this wonderful house?
I enjoy coming here. It's it's a place of wonder. As you can see, there's a lot of place of historical sites and items, and it's a unique house.
Okay, and I think someone else is about to come and visit you. Who is this coming in?
Love. This is my husband, Willys Peck. Thank you, sweet.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. Thank you, that's sweet. Willys is life itself. Willys is love itself. I am so fortunate to be able to have 57 years that we have just celebrated in our wedding anniversary together. And his love and his way of looking at the world it makes me just laugh and have a wonderful day every day. Such as I'll say, Willis, I need some help, and could you come and toss the salad? And he'll say, where? I mean, he's just full of all kinds of wonderful tricks and jokes and humor, which I didn't have on my list when I was putting it down for a husband. And I realize now that's one of the most important things there is humor throughout the day. I mean, it is just wonderful. And thank you so much for the flowers.
Thank you.
St. Francis over here, he said, preach always, but seldom with words. And my husband, who loves words, has all these printing presses. And the mayor's husband, Rick, made these little garden holders for me. And my friend, Nancy Lee, said you have to write a story about this garden, so she did, and gave me this couple of books, and I had one book laminated. I took out all the pages, so you will see them up. This is the tree house. I found my my granddaughter reading in the fork of this tree. Her head was here, bottom here, feet up here, and I said, oh, we're going to have to build a whole reading tree house around you. So my friend came over and built the reading tree house, and Pat Fox, my wonderful designer, wrote the reading tree house. It just happened to be a hole right here in the wood. We found in my farm school, I had an old wagon that we brought home, and all the grasses and ivy grew over it, and we pulled it back up, and it just happened to be by one of Mrs. Higginbotham's poles. My son made this iron crow in the play, in Shakespeare's play, where it says, go fetch me an iron crow. It's supposed not to be this kind of a crow, crow hammer kind of thing. All the old farm equipment that they were throwing away, I brought down to my farm school for children to play on. And that was our play equipment. The Saratoga Inn was not far from here, a couple of houses down, and it was here that Dorothea Johnson had these wonderful dramas that she would give, and Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine and their family would walk over and be in these dramas along with Willis's family, because they all lived across the street, and they would have these fantastic dramas for the entire community. And this is the name of the inn, and this is their old sign, Saratoga Inn. When we were building the Great Hall, because Willis didn't want the neighbors ever to complain of our outdoor theatricals, so we were going to have them inside, the fireplace was made of the creek rock, but the person who was building it said, I've got to make you a tower. And so he made this beautiful tower, and at the top is my throne that he made. This is Gutenberg and his wife and a monk. And if you take off Gutenberg's hat and beard, it becomes Willis. And take off this, it becomes my daughter. Take off this, it becomes Willis's father, who ran the newspaper in town and owned it. And when my daughter went to the University of Santa Cruz, she said, there's one thing I want to do. I want to learn calligraphy. And at that moment, the Queen had sent her scribe, Donald Jackson, over, and he was my daughter's calligraphy teacher. And he stayed here at night was our house guest, and in the morning he'd get up and he would make quills out of the wings of the bird. You only use the wings to make a quill because they have air through them, and they can take up the ink. It's very exciting.
Okay, and this is Humpty Dumpty up here?
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Yes. And this is my husband's primrose path. All the primrose planted around here. Every kindergarten teacher believes in guardian angels, and when Willys named his railroad that comes along this track,
the dangerous instrumentality and attractive nuisance railroad. Those are legal terms.
Anyway, so that's why we have that. And then you want to talk about this?
Yes, this is this needs some repair here. This sign, furniture and undertaking, I got that wording from a sign that was in Los Gatos in front of a funeral home. And the first undertakers were furniture dealers because a coffin was an article of furniture. And so this undertaker, whose name was Place, had a sign in front that said furniture and undertaking. And I think it's interesting that that funeral home is now a restaurant. And so my quip about that is, if you go to that restaurant, avoid the cold cuts.
And here is the theater. My husband calls it theater on the ground. So this is the theater on the ground. The theater down three houses down was called Theater in the Glade, but my husband called this Theater on the Ground. And if you can see, all these wonderful benches here are just filled to capacity. The last play we gave was Measure for Measure.
This is our amphitheater, what we call the Theater on the Ground. It got its beginning shortly after we were married in 1952, when Betty bought 4 tennis court benches, high back benches, that are in the back row of this theater. So the question was, what do you do with 4 tennis court benches? Well, it seemed to me the obvious thing to do with those benches was build a theater around them. We had some very talented people playing Romeo and Juliet, and
in the audience, sat my young son, who was amazed and thrilled at such a performance, and grew up to be Romeo, and Annette Bening was his Juliet, and he performed that great, glorious production at Paul Masson's up here in the hills. And only last week it was written up in his school newspaper because they were again giving Romeo and Juliet. So Bill Peck got to have it all over again. When we first moved here, we had no neighbors. And when we began to have neighbors, Willys said, I don't want anyone complaining about my theatricals, so I'm going to build an indoor theater. So there's the stage, and we've had many, many performances, And we have chairs and people sit this way. When we have musicals, then we all sit way back in there and face this way. So we're constantly having programs, festivals, and gatherings. And this Titus lives behind in winter behind the a tree here, but on Halloween he comes out and shakes your hand. It's a skeleton that no one wanted from this old doctor's office, so I gave it to Willys. But our yoga teacher loves it because she can just say, look, it's this bone. And then up here on the wall, Willis's grandfather was the doctor to the first president of China. And so we have this beautiful thank you from Dr. Peck, from the doctor overseas. And we feel very honored to have that in our possession. And many of the things you see are from China itself.
The train out in front is a model of the locomotive C.P. Huntington, which is one of the first engines on what became the Southern Pacific Railroad. That engine, the original engine, is now on display at the Railroad Museum in Sacramento.
My own grandchildren wrote letters to the fairies, and the fairies would be so pleased to answer them. And it was very exciting. One day they asked for wings, and the fairy said, oh my dear, we grow our own wings, but if you look in the garden somewhere, you might find some that we've chosen for you. And then when they grew up to be in their teens, they stopped writing to the fairies, but my friend said, you must have a fairy garden no matter what. And so she brings over all these lovely things to enhance the fairies to come and join us again in our garden. In my kindergarten, there was a closet, and when I'd open it up, there was my whole philosophy of life written. It would say, thank you for all the magic moments that make it possible for me to stand here and to feel how truly wonderful I am. Nothing we've ever done. It's taken 15,000 billion years for us to be here. And all the things that have happened, we should feel that we are more than we are. And when children forgot how wonderful they were, I would stand them in front of the mirror and say, how could you possibly have forgotten how wonderful you are? And they would just melt. That's all I had to say. Just that.